But in any case, it's time to get back into the randoms. We have 18 randoms left, so let's see what we roll next. It is 11. Magical Destroyers. Oh, I think I remember people talking about this one. Let's see if it's good.
You know, I tried to at least make it to the magical girl part of Magical Destroyers, but this show is so aggressively boring and aggressively unfunny that I just couldn't. This show is so lame. And, like, for two reasons. One, this is a director that I am very familiar with. I've seen a lot of his work, Hiroshi Ikehata, I believe. On the one hand, he did Fly Me to the Moon, which I really like. On the other hand, he's done a lot of stuff that I don't like. He did, that anthropomorphic animal school one from, like, a couple years ago that was so bad. He did, I covered it a little while ago, the Novice Alchemist one, which was okay, but not, like, interesting enough to keep going. This is a guy who is, very firmly, like, the material that he's working with determines whether he's funny or not. And Magical Destroyers is an anime original, so guess how that went. He did Akiba's Trip, too, which was an adaptation of a video game, I think, which had really cool animation, but was really boring, because, anyway, that's one of the reasons, is I'm not a particularly big fan of this director. And also, you may recall that I didn't give a lot of high marks to the anime adaptation of Fly Me to the Moon. It's not a super well-directed series. It's a competent series that is very much carried by its source material. And the other thing about Magical Destroyers is, I don't like to say that I'm not a fan of certain premises, but the oppressed otaku premise, I just do not give a flying fuck about. I'm not super into, like, that brand of otaku-ness. I have my own specific otaku things that I like, but the very generic idea of otaku, like the stereotypical idea of what an otaku is, I don't fucking care. It's not my thing at all. And this show in particular put, like, no effort into, like, why its otaku are being oppressed or out marginalized or whatever. There's another show whose name I can't even remember. I think it was a year ago, a couple years ago or so, that did the same thing. I barely made it past the opening scene, I think. If I'm being honest, the only one of these shows that did this well was Shimonetta, because it was all about dick jokes and horny high schoolers. and also, maybe it's just because I am so much more into specific political ideas now, and I know that in our current climate, there is absolutely no way otaku would ever be an oppressed group because they spend money. They're the bag holders. They have the expendable income to prop up the capitalism that is keeping everyone else fucked. So there is no fucking way in hell that anything about this world would let them become, like, an ostracized class. That's just not how it works. I'm sure no one on this staff thought that hard about it. None of you probably thought that hard about it. I'm just bored by how unfunny this show is, and it got me thinking. And now I wish to stop thinking.
Alright, Magical Destroyers is off the list. Let's roll again and see what we get. It is 7. 17. Ah, there it is. Mobile Suit Gundam Reconguista in G. And this is the all 5 movies. So, this might take a bit, or not long at all. We're gonna find out.
Oh my god. Oh, what the fuck did I just watch? Okay, I watched about 2.5 of the g-reco movies, and I just can't anymore. My brain is fucking fried. Like, everything you've heard about g-reco is true. This show, this story is so bonkers and so insanely fast-paced to the point where you cannot keep track of fucking anything. Like, until the threat from the moon showed up and then all of the other sides, like, united to fight them, I had no clue who was on whose side. Like, I thought I had a good idea in the first movie, and then the second movie, I just had no clue what was going on. And then, it kept going. Because things just happen so fucking fast that you can't even stop to think about what is happening. You can't process what is going on. Not that there would be something to process anyway, because it's all like half information, and like it gives you like half details and then expects you to fill in the gaps, and it's so fucking confusing. But I was willing to roll with it at least after the first movie, because that first movie is so fucking weird and hilarious and like fun to watch. Like, that first movie is like the pinnacle of weird anime writing. Not like weird Japan haha sex things. I mean weird fucking shit. Like a space cadet shitting in the middle of a Gundam cockpit, surrounded by 3 beautiful women, while vaguely Arabic sounding music plays as like waiting room music. Insane. I tried to find that clip on YouTube just so I could show people, but like it must have been like copyright struck or something. If you can find like the g-reco pooping scene, man, it's like I was hoping that, and the whole first movie is kind of like that, where it's just weird shit just keeps happening constantly. And I was like, if the whole series is like this, then yeah, I'm on board. Sadly, it was not. The first movie was bad and poorly written and poorly paced, but it was fun because of all the weird shit that was happening. The second movie was just bad and poorly written and way too fast-paced, and I could barely follow anything, and there really wasn't anything fun in it, except for like the action scenes, I guess. There was no weird shit, there was no bizarre what the fuck moments. It was just bad. And the third movie seems to be like continuing that. It had like one decent moment that I've already forgotten what it was. But yeah, I got like, how far did I get into this? I got almost 40 minutes into the third movie. And I'm just like, one of the characters who is basically Casca from Berserk, like post-eclipse Casca, you know, brain scrambled Casca. One of the characters is basically that. But she's slightly more verbal. And then in the third movie, like, she just gets her memories back off screen? I missed something? I don't fucking know. And it's like, and you know what? The characters are actually okay. The characters are, like, fun. They don't have solid personalities because they're all at the whims of this fucking insane-o plot. And, like, that was one of the reasons why I was so fucking confused for this, is, like, I could not keep track of Bel's, like, what side he was on, because I was totally confused as to who was on what side. Again, this is a series with a space pope in it, by the way. Did I mention the space pope? I don't think I mentioned the space pope. There's a space pope. Ugh. It's so weird. I just wish it was more fun. And you know what? It doesn't look bad. The anime, it's not great looking. It's not at, like, G-Witch quality or like IBO quality, but it's good looking. Or maybe it's just because I'm used to watching stuff that looks mediocre and bad. This looks good. The action scenes are fun and fast-paced. Maybe a little too jagged, but the mechs look really cool. I love the G-Self. It looks pretty cool. It's got these, like, horns that go forward. The color design is still really good. Just this nice brightness that's not, like, oversaturated in any areas. Soundtrack is pretty solid. It's just an absolute clusterfuck of a story that I'm not even going to try to follow anymore.
Alright. Reconguista in G is off the list. Let's head back to the random stuff. How many left do we have? 16. Next one is 5. Skip and Loafer. Okay. Another cute rom-com, I think. Heard a lot of good things about this one. Let's give it a go.
Ah, shoot. I didn't expect this one to be my buddy daddies of the season, but here we are. I got through a little over an episode of Skip and Loafer. There's nothing wrong with it per se. It's actually a very well constructed series. The characters are already very fleshed out and likable. Animation's really solid, just some really good, very mellow artwork. It's just there's nothing really holding my attention, I guess. Also, I should correct what I said earlier. It's not a rom-com, it's just like a regular, like, school comedy drama series. Which is fine. But I don't know. There's just nothing particularly holding my attention, I guess. This story... That's all I have to say, I guess. I mean, this is one of those very rare ones where I'm like, this show is, like, good. I'm just not interested in it at all. So, like, it's got like some really great chemistry. It has some cool trans representation in it that just seems very, like, normal, which was awesome. I can see, like, some of the, like, minor, like, high school-y conflicts starting to build up. I probably won't be a fan of those if they end up getting a little explosive. But, yeah, there's just not... I'm just not compelled to watch more of this, I guess. The intro, like, conflict of her getting to school was really good. And I don't know, man. It's just one of those things, I guess. Again, this is my buddy daddies of the season, where I'm like, this is good, but I'm just not Something about it is not holding my attention. I don't know what it is. Maybe there's just some weird awkwardness about it that I'm just not understanding. Like, no, I mean, there probably isn't, because this show is rated fairly highly. Like, it's got over an 8 on Mal. I know a lot of people like this show. I'm just not connecting with it, I guess.
Alright, skipping Loafer, unfortunately coming off the list. Right, we're down to 15 randos and then 2 end caps. Let's see what we roll next. 4. A Galaxy Next Door. I've heard this title a lot, but I don't know anything about it. Yeah, let's figure it out.
Yeah, this one's just super mediocre and bland and boring. I got through about half an episode of A Galaxy Next Door. It's not, like, bad, but it's just so not good. It's not great. It's just so plain and average. Like, the character designs are boring. The color palette is just boring. There is nothing visually interesting about this anime whatsoever. It's not incompetent, but I mean, I guess you could say not being interesting is incompetent. It's just, it is putting in the absolute bare minimum to not be bad looking. But I don't think that that's enough. I really don't. Yeah, I don't. It's boring to look at and boring to watch. The dialogue is so not interesting and not, like, intriguing or anything. Also, I just found it kind of funny that it's like the main dude in this, it's like his parents are dead and he has to look after his 2 younger siblings while being a manga artist. I'm like, oh wow, that's gonna be kind of rough. He's gonna be pretty tight on money. And then it's like, oh, and he also inherited an apartment complex from his dad. I'm like, okay, fucking rich ass prick. Yeah, so that kind of dissolved a bit of the tension. Although I assume it's also there so that he can have interactions with the tenants later on, because there's just this random high school girl walking around. I don't even think they've said her name yet. They might have, but I'm not sure. And she's just kind of there with no explanation. I just assume she's one of his classmates. Who knows? I'm too bored to figure it out. Let's move on.
Alright, Galaxy Next Door is done off the list. Gonna do 2 more randos. Next one is going to be 8. My Clueless First Friend. Okay, I read the manga, the first volume of the manga for this one. I thought it was decently cute. Let's see if I make it through a whole season of the anime.
Alright, I got through about 3.5 episodes of My Clueless First Friend. It's fun. It's decent. I find the aesthetic to be interesting. It's this very, very light aesthetic. Really leading into, like, the brightness of everything. Especially with these very weird, like, hazy hair outlines. At first, I was, like, mildly impressed because I thought that they matched the hair highlights were matching the direction of light sources, because I noticed that they were changing direction at one point, but then, like, I took a closer look and it's kind of just random how it is, so I was a little less impressed by that. And the character designs can be pretty shaky a lot of the time, but they're not terrible. This is a fine show. I do like the humor of it all, but the reason I'm not finishing it is because the joke has definitely gotten old. It's the same joke of Taiyo is impressed by something that Nishimura does that everyone else thinks is like weird or creepy or whatever, so on and so forth. And that has been basically the entire joke for 3.5 episodes. So, if I were to finish this would be like a decent 6. But I got 130 other anime to watch, so I'm trying to not watch, like, fines. I'm trying to not watch averages right now. I don't got time for that shit. I just want to get through all the good stuff. So again, this show is fine. If you like take it in like bits and pieces, I'm sure you would have a great time with it. But I'm already bored with the joke, so I just kind of want to move on to the next thing.
Alright, my Clueless first friend is off the list. I think we got time for one more random before we jump down to our end caps. Let's see what it's gonna be. 1. Jigoku Raku. Okay. I've read a decent chunk of the manga for this. And this is a MAPPA production that a lot of people were talking about earlier in the year. Let's see if it's good or not.
Okay, just finished up all of Hell's Paradise. Yeah, that was an action series. I would say if it had ended slightly earlier, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. We'll get into that later, but on the whole, I mean, if you're looking for like a good action series that's a little on the edgier side, but not like the haha I'm so evil edgy, more of just like the hey, brutal shit's gonna happen kind of edgy, yeah, this is the series for you. You're gonna like this. Especially in the earlier fights, like the way, like the human to human fights, there are some pretty brutal maimings and killings and so on and so forth that gave the action a little bit of punch to really liven up the experience in comparison to some of the other stuff that I've been watching or trying to watch lately. And I would say on the whole, like throughout the whole series, the action is solid. It's some good stuff. Not a lot of it is like super mind-blowing. There's like probably 2 fight scenes that really stick out in my mind. The Gabimaru versus the Tensen in like episode 9, I think, or 8 or 9. And then like the final battle between Shion and the Tensen. But even outside of those, the fights are still pretty solid. Very entertaining, very well choreographed, so on and so forth. But speaking of the production, this is another MAPPA action show, which means that on the whole, it is well produced, but the seams are very much there. You can very much see the cracks in the production, even when it's trying to look really good, because there's definitely some compositing issues in this. Mostly in the scenes where there's not a lot of stuff going on, like where it's just standing around and where it's just scenes where people are just standing around and talking. It looks like the characters in the backgrounds are on 2 separate planes of reality. And it definitely dragged me out of the experience a little bit there. Not a whole lot. It's not the worst thing in the world. I think there are worse things about this production than the compositing. Like for example, the color design can be a little wonky at times. There are definitely some points where it feels like something was off, like it was not colored correctly. Like there's a shot towards the end of Nurigai and Shion in like a flashback sort of thing that just looks not good color-wise. In general, I think the color design is pretty solid in terms of like the designs of the characters and the designs of the backgrounds. And I know there's supposed to be a lot of contrast between those two things, but I think there's a little too much in the wrong areas, and so things don't blend together well in certain ways. The design sense in general for the island that they end up at, honestly, I'm not a big fan of. Like, I understand it's supposed to be like this mishmash of a bunch of different things, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be cool to look at. A lot of this shit just kind of looks goofy as hell, and it makes the stuff a lot less threatening. This is one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of the monster designs and stuff like Dandadan. Not a fan of those designs at all. I don't think this is as bad as wonky as that, as weird and wacky as that, but it's definitely getting up there. Fortunately, despite that, there's still a lot of good about this show. Mostly in that pretty much most of the main characters are pretty enjoyable to follow. Gabimaru is by far my favorite just because he's the most fleshed out of the characters, obviously being the main character, but he actually has a really solid definition of his character and his motivations for why he acts, the way he changes over the course of the series. I love his backstory as being a wife guy. This was a strong season for wife guys, by the way. We had Gabimaru, we had Nasa from Tonikawa. You could throw Suleta from G-Witch in there. She is definitely a wife guy. Spring season was a strong season for wife guys. And that was definitely what got me super endeared to Gabimaru very early in the series. Just that first episode really shapes him in a way that makes him super likable and just you want to follow him. And then the ending of the final episode happens, which is also the reason why I dropped the manga, actually. I didn't think the anime was going to get that far based on the pace that it was going at, but essentially the season ends with the idea of, oh, what if it was all an illusion just to control Gabimaru and in his ninja village or whatever. And I was like, either A, it's not true and you just wasted my time, or B, it is true and you've taken away the thing that I like the most about this character. So either way, it's a lose-lose for me. And there really wasn't a lot of like mind game kind of stuff in the series up until that point, so it felt really like jammed in there. I think the anime makes it fit in a lot better than the manga, but it still feels out of place in terms of like the things that are to expect from the series so far. So not a fan. Makes me wonder how far I would get in season 2 when it eventually airs, but I guess we'll have to wait for that. But aside from Gabimaru, all the other characters were decently solid. Not a whole lot of them that I'm attached to particularly. Just personality-wise, I think Yuzuriha is probably my favorite because she's got some Harley Quinn energy to her in certain ways. And I like that. Like that shot, that metaphorical shot of her dancing in this rain of severed heads with the umbrella, that was really had some Harley energy to it, and I like that. she's fun. She's just fun to follow. I will say though, this series definitely has had some issues in how backstories are doled out. In that it does the Demon Slayer thing of, oh, this character is about to die. Let's dump his entire backstory right now so you feel sad when he dies in 5 seconds. I'm like, I hate that. That sucks. It's like Demon Slayer makes it work because its production is so fucking solid. Mappa is not Ufotable. I have some issues with Ufotable, but I cannot deny when they make really fucking good shit, and Mappa is not on that level. So the backstories fall a little bit flatter in this one, especially like the blonde-haired guy who's initially paired with the little girl. I forget what his name. I don't even remember his name, and they spend so much time on his backstory before dying. It's bad. I'll just say it. That's bad. That's just bad writing. I don't like it. Yeah, I do. Now, as much as I will say, as much as I'm not a fan of the visuals of the world building for this, I do like the narrative world building of it. It's got there's a really like solid mystery theme running through all of it in terms of like, why does this world exist? Well, what are the mechanics of it? How the fuck are we gonna get off this island? Really, the way that all of those are constructed, I really like. I do like the narrative world building of it all. I just am not a huge fan of the visual elements. Although I'm not sure how I feel about the elixir not existing. Now again, this is only the first season, so maybe they'll pull some bullshit at the end, or in the next season. There's probably only one season of this left, based on the rate that this is going. We'll see. What was I talking about? Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the elixir not being real. Because on the one hand, it's like, that definitely takes away the... Actually, no, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm not a big fan of that. Because it, like, one of the cool things... There's a lot of, like, mishmash of, like, genre bases for this series. And one of them is it has a little bit of battle royale in it, in that like only one person gets a pardon at the end of this journey, so they're incentivized to kill each other along the way, so that they're the ones who get the elixir of life. And now knowing that the elixir doesn't exist, it kind of just takes that conflict away. So not a big fan of that. Yeah, a lot. I would also say, like, I was feeling a little fatigued in these last episodes, mostly because I realized that it was starting to do the Demon Slayer thing with the backstories. Like, they do it with the blonde-haired guy, they do it with Senta. It's not good. I also am kind of lukewarm on like how the humans like get into the power system of this world. Like, in theory, like, oh, it's just something that anyone can do. Okay. And it's just like that I'm fine with, but and then it goes like, oh, it's just the thing that you've been using this entire time. You just haven't been calling it that, and you've all been like interacting with it in different ways. And then, like, as soon as that knowledge enters the arena, it's suddenly like, oh, I understand everything now. And I can develop high-level Tau usage over the course of half a battle. Now again, makes the battles cooler. I'll say that. Like visually cooler and more like fast paced and more action-y kind of cool. But it feels a little cheap in my opinion. Like I come from the world of shonen, specifically Shonen Jump, where training arcs are the big thing. So I would have liked to see a little bit more of the characters coming to understand how the power set works. It feels like they speed ran the power system in this, and now suddenly everyone just kind of understands it. So I was a little disappointed in that. I believe this is a seinen series. I think I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure this is a seinen series. But either way, was a little disappointed in that. Do I have anything else to say? Soundtrack was mostly unnoticeable, but not in a bad way. It just kind of helped the just helped the ambiance of everything. There was really only one soundtrack piece that I noticed. It was in episode 9, I think, when Gabimaru and Big Tall Dude were fighting one of the Doshi. I vaguely remember that one standing out. But yeah, I would say this is a decent action series. Depending on how long they dwell on the memory manipulation thing, because apparently also Gabimaru has just completely forgotten a huge chunk of his memories at the end of this season and reverted back to old Gabimaru, which is definitely going to be not interesting at all. Depending on how long they stick with that, I guess will determine how far I get into season 2. But we haven't even gotten a release date for that yet. So instead, let's go figure out where to put this first season on the list.
Alright, Hell's Paradise is complete. And we're not going to go too far up the list, unfortunately. And we're going to drop it right in the number 23 spot for now with a strong 6. Really solid core premise and protagonist, but just dozens and dozens of little tiny things that kept me from fully enjoying it, especially at the end. Alright, now it's time for the end cap show, which is going to be Demon Slayer Swordsmith Village Arc. Honestly, didn't hear a lot of people talking about this season, so let's see if this show is still good or not.
Oh my god. Okay, that ending sucked. I just finished all of the Demon Slayer's Swordsmith Village arc. You know what? I thought I was going to like this season more than the previous one, because I was so bored by Entertainment District. Like, until, like, the last couple episodes, I was just completely fucking bored. And I hated the sound Hashira. So, I was hoping, like, this would be, like, a bounce-back season. Be like, okay, that other arc was kind of not great, but maybe this will bounce back. And, well, it bounced somewhere. It certainly bounced somewhere. I knew going in that this was not a favorite from people based on the fact that barely anyone talked about it while it was airing in comparison to previous seasons. So that doesn't necessarily disqualify it from me liking it, because that, honestly, sometimes that might be an indication that I do like it, because my tastes are weird. And for the first few episodes, it was going pretty well. I liked the first episode a lot more than the first episode of Entertainment District, although we need to stop doing double episodes. It needs to stop. No more. We don't need any more double episodes. And this had 2 double episodes in it. The first episode and the last episode were double episodes. The last one was much more painful than the first one. And, like, even though I liked the first episode, it still had really bad pacing issues because it was a double episode. But the first few episodes, I was liking it pretty well. The little bit of expounding on the world building. Sorry, my thoughts are a little scattered on this because the last like 4 episodes just completely threw me through a loop. Like everything was going fine. Loved Hashira Kanroji. She's great. Just this bubbly little Genki girl Hashira, who I just want to dive into this now. Yuki Kajira is still pulling her weight for this series with the soundtrack, because with Kanroji specifically, she lifts some elements from, I forget what the title of it is, but it's a track that plays during, like, in Madoka Magica, there's a track that I think is often associated with Mami, I think. You'll hear it a lot in the first few episodes of Madoka Magica, and Kanroji's theme in Demon Slayer sounds a lot like that. So Kajira is definitely going back into her hits. For better or for worse, to be honest, because there's that, which was kind of cool, but also it still felt kind of derivative. And then there was one point where there was an ascending line, choral line that sounded exactly like Swordland from Sword Art Online. I forget what episode it was in. It was in one of the mid episodes, I think, the middle episodes. And I was like, that's just Swordland. So maybe she's running out of ideas. Maybe I do like the more like Demon Slayer-ish tracks in this, though. They're that nice classical Japanese kind of sound to it. But yeah, I guess a little hit and miss with Kajira now that I say it out loud. But yeah, first few episodes were going really well. I liked the banter between everyone. I like that we're finally fucking free of Zenitsu and Inosuke for at least one arc. Because, like, I don't like their chemistry with Tanjiro. I don't like it. Like, I like them as characters individually, but the banter is so fucking bad. So I was relieved that that would not be here. And to its credit, there is a little bit less shouting in this season. Not a whole lot less, but a bit less. And then Slayer started doing the Demon Slayer thing. You know, where it does all of the things that make this show fucking unbearable to watch. Mainly, the pacing is completely fucked. Because this basically, I think it's like either episode 2 or episode 3 is when the fight starts. And just from there, the whole season is a fight up until like the halfway through the last double episode. And boy, does it stretch that fucking fight out with too much talking, too much backstory, and honestly a little too much fighting. Like, there's only so many times I can watch. Okay, so as a little anecdote, I was on vacation once at my friend's cabin, and I was reading Rurouni Kenshin while I was there. This was a while ago, and one of the other guys who was up there with us was like, "Oh, did he beat the bad guy by swinging the sword really fast?" And like, facetious, but it's point made. And I got a lot of that in this season. They beat the enemy by swinging the sword really fast. And some of the sword swinging looked really cool. Like, I liked Kanroji's, like, sword whip kind of thing. That looked cool. Some of the first time Tanjiro combined his sun breathing with the Nezuko's blood fire thing. The first time that happened was pretty cool, and then they kept using it over and over and over again. Did not care for the Miss Tashira's style. It's just kind of boring. Also, I thought, like, that's another thing. The show drags its feet in some areas and then sprints in others. Like, the Miss Tashira's backstory is so fucking dragged out. It's like an episode and a half of backstory that's not very good. It's not good. The Miss Tash, it sucked. It sucked. It was so dragged out. That could have been done in half an episode at most, and it took like 3 times as long. For probably a worse effect, actually. I think it would have been more effective if it was shorter. If this season was like a true 11 episodes, instead of 11 episodes but 2 of them are double length, I think this could have been a lot better. Hell, I think you could do this season in 10 regular episodes, if I'm being honest. You could cut so much unnecessary shit from this season. It is so bloated and repetitive and uninteresting. Tighten up the fucking pace, my guy. Like I shouldn't be saying you could cut a ton of stuff from an 11 episode series. It's a 13 episode series or season, but you get my point. It's so fucking dragged out. It does the backstory thing where like and the placement of the backstories are so garbo. It's always like, oh, this character's about to die. Let's have all of the flashbacks. And if they're a bad guy, then they die. But if they're a good guy, then they live. And they come up with something at the end of the flashback that makes them win. It's not most egregious in with the Miss Tashira. What's his name? Muichiro. That's the worst one, but the most egregious, the most like bald-faced, what the fuck are you doing one is with Kanroji, where it's like she's about to be punched in the fucking skull and then flashback. I'm like, I literally screamed, "Oh, come on." I was fucking annoyed. And it was not a bad backstory. Could have been tightened up a little bit, but not. It was less than half an episode. And I actually liked her, as opposed to Muichiro, who I was just kind of lukewarm on. And then it cuts back, and she's just pulled out of the way by everyone else, and they spew the most cheesy, on-the-nose shit about her, like she's our ray of hope and our only way to win, or whatever. And then it cuts to another flashback for her, if I recall. And then it cuts back, and it's like, what the fuck are we even doing right now? This show is so poorly paced and so badly written. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh, speaking of badly written, let's talk about Nezuko. I hate her. I hate her so much. I used to be like kind of okay on Nezuko. Like if I recall in my own Demon Slayer video, I defended Nezuko fairly well in that. Like in the first season, I bet if I go back and rewatch the first season, I will hate her a lot more. But it's because her arc doesn't fucking go anywhere. But it's so much worse now. Like, she is literally a moe object whose sole purpose is to protect and support Tanjiro. That is literally her only purpose. Even like that sacrifice moment at the end, it was so Tanjiro could move forward as a demon slayer, like, and do his job. It wasn't like some self-recognition kind of thing. It was all for Tanjiro. So that fucking sucked. And then they did the stupidest fucking thing I have ever seen from this series. Where it's suddenly like, oh, I guess she can walk in the sun now. She just got over it. Fuck you. It sucked so much. And then, like, the fallout from it sucked so much. Like, first of all, the fact that she, like, forgot how to speak properly, it's been, I think, 2 years? So, it's not like she's... First of all, it's not like she got Casca'd or anything. She just wasn't allowed to speak because of the fucking thing over her mouth. But actually, now that I think about it, even when she doesn't have the fucking bamboo gag over her mouth, she doesn't speak anyway. Like, there have been plenty of instances where her mouth is wide open. And, like, other demons talk. In fact, all of the other demons talk. Except for Nezuko. I just realized that while watching this season. That every single other demon in this show, no matter how weak, is able to speak. Except for Nezuko. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh, and then they do the Muzan backstory, which was the most disappointing thing of all time. Where it was just like, oh, he was just some fuck. Who, and his doctor, like, gave him medicine that turned him into a demon, I guess. I think that's what happened. But he was also just a fucking pissant. Like, I didn't... Based on what I remember from season 1, I wasn't expecting him to be, like, super big, awesome, complicated dude. Like, I was expecting, like, a whiny, snivelly little guy, but, like, the way it's portrayed in this season is just so... meh? It's so unengaging. It sucks. And so do the other demons this season. They suck. Like, the number 4, the upper 4, I don't remember what his name is. But his backstory... Demon Slayer, it still does the... Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it's like right before they die, you get their backstory to learn about them. And his backstory was just so ass. It just this whiny, snivelly little old man who apparently looked that way before he turned into a demon. Fucking, I don't know. We actually don't get a backstory for the upper 5, I don't think. Which is all well and good, I guess. Although, I will admit, the animators loved drawing upper 5 this season. His arm movements were so creepy and fun. It looked fun. That's one of the things. See, that's the thing that kept me, like, watching. One of the things that kept me watching, despite all the horse shit, is this is still a good looking show. Like, it has some compositing issues here and there, not quite as much as Jugoku Raku, Hell's Paradise, and not as much as even other contemporary shonen like Jujutsu Kaisen, although I haven't seen Season 2 yet, so we'll see about that. I will say excuse me. I will say, though, there was a lot more CG this season than there was in previous ones. Like, Demon Slayer has always had really bad CG. People tend to forget that. Like, the very first episode had this really shitty CG bird in it that was walking around in the snow. But the first season didn't go as hard on all of that CG. This one, like, really goes all in on, like, a bunch of CG builds. Some of which are fine, like the wood dragon things I thought were fine. Or they stone, wood, earth, whatever. I thought those were fine. The first episode, the way that Muzan's, like, other dimension is constructed, I really fucking liked that. Until we got to, like, the beakers and shit, and those just started exploding like it was some goddamn Ghost Adventure intro. You know the thing where, like, you know that thing in, like, have you ever played Trivia Murder Party? You know those random flashes of horrific imagery whenever it transitions in that game? It looked like that. It looked cheesy as all hell. It looked like shit. It kind of ruined the vibe that was going before. I am so tired of this show. I don't even care about what the big mystery is. Because apparently the big mystery's gone now. Like, how did Muzan become a demon? Oh, some doctor fed him some medicine. Okay. The only really big mystery left, I guess, is how the number one demon became a demon. Because he's very clearly the guy who had almost killed Muzan that one time. It's very clearly that guy. So that's the only mystery left. But I don't fucking care. Oh. The one thing I think I got off track about Nezuko is now that she is able to walk in the sun, not only is she just the moe object to support Tanjiro, now she is a literal plot device because Muzan wants to eat her and gain her, like, sun repellent powers or whatever. So now she's even less of a character and more of a MacGuffin. This sucks shit. And you know what? It probably always sucked shit, but I was just distracted by other things more. The theme of family in this one is so weak in comparison to past seasons. Like, again, go back and watch my Demon Slayer video from the second 12 Days of Anime if you want to know more about that. But this theme of Demon Slayer is like family and how family bonds support each other, how Muzan completely rejects the concept of family, how misinterpretations of family lead the demons to falter. That's mostly gone from this season. It's like Muichiro had a brother who protected him. Kanroji had a super supportive family. And then Genya, he has a rift in his family. But they're not interesting things. They're not interesting like the Nanagumo mountain demons. They're not interesting like that. They're not interesting like Yutaro and his sister. whose name I forgot. They're not interesting like even Tanjiro or Zenitsu or Inosuke. It's just like, oh, these guys have families. Okay. Oh, by the way, Genya, it's the same voice actor as Bakugo, and it sounds exactly like him. Like, I'm sure people have pointed that out already, but there wasn't even an attempt to differentiate them. The difference is Bakugo is a way funner character. This show sucks shit. Just flat out. I'm not going to watch the Hashira training arc in the next spring season. Fuck this show.
Okay. Demon Slayer's finally done. It's going pretty low on the list. In the number 30 spot, you get a decent 4. It's probably more like a light 4, but I just need to shift some other stuff down on my master ranking list. That was ass.